All right. Hello. Welcome to our live on ServiceNow webinar today on our February 2023 store release updates for workplace service delivery. We have lots of exciting innovation to talk about today, including two brand new applications, as you can see here on the slide. Those two new applications are lease administration and maintenance management. And we'll have a lot of other topics that we'll also overview that were added as a part of this release. And first, just in case we haven't met yet, my name is Allison, and I lead our outbound product management team for workplace service delivery here at ServiceNow, and I will be our host for today's session. Also on the slide, you can see that I'm joined by three amazing people who will also be presenting as a part of our webinar today. Joe is part of our solution consulting organization, and we have Claire and Elizabeth who are also part of outbound product management. So all four of us will be presenting during different portions of today's webinar and keeping track of the Q&A. And before we get started, I have a couple of things that I want to go through. First is our safe harbor notice. So we are live with this release. You can go ahead and install it in instances now and find everything that we're talking about today on our public documentation site, which is docs.servicenow.com in case you're not already familiar. But just in case, we do have our safe harbor notice in here. If we get to any questions that have us alluding or talking about forward-looking statements regarding what may be coming in our roadmap. The other thing I want to point out is that our webinar today is actually part of a series of events here at ServiceNow called Live on ServiceNow. So we host these pretty regularly for workplace service delivery. For example, we typically host these now for each of our store releases to kind of cover what has changed or what's new. But this is something that happens across all of ServiceNow. And so if you're not already familiar with the schedule, you can either scan this QR code or check the chat to get to the link that has the list of all of the different webinars and meetups that exist across our different product areas. Next is housekeeping. So all of you as attendees should already be muted by default, but just a reminder in case you're not, please do stay on mute just to avoid any background noise as we're presenting. The other thing I want to call out is that we will have time dedicated for Q&A after we wrap up the presentation and the demos. So please go ahead and to Zoom, use that Q&A feature to ask questions throughout the session. We'll be keeping an eye on that and we'll either answer them in written format or come off mute at the end to answer them live. And just a friendly reminder, there is a difference between Q&A and chat and Zoom. Please do use that Q&A feature for actual questions. That just makes it easier for those of us who are facilitating to see the order of questions and not just get distracted by some of those other chats. Another thing, if you do use Q&A and you ask a question, please introduce yourself. We love to know who you are, where you're based, so feel free to give some of that context in any of the written questions that you submit. The other thing that tends to be a frequently asked question is whether these sessions are recorded. And yes, the answer is yes. We record these live on ServiceNow events, and so we're recording, and we will post this recording once it processes back to our community forum. And the other thing I want to highlight is that after today's session, you will be prompted to fill out a survey. Please take a moment or two to fill that out. It's very quick, and it really helps us understand how you perceived our content and our speakers today, and helps us kind of influence what we may talk about next time or how we may change the facilitation style. Now, in terms of today specifically, what we're going to cover is first a summary of what has happened in our February store release. I'll have kind of a slide where I'll walk through an overview and kind of give you some of the summary. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go into a bit more of a deep dive for the things that you see beneath that. So like I mentioned earlier, we have brand new applications. We have workplace lease administration and workplace maintenance management. And we also are going to be talking about something called Space Recommender and our new support for neighborhoods. And for all of these topics, what we'll do is we'll have an introduction slide to kind of outline what the application or capability is. And then we're going to transition into a live instance and actually show you a demo of what this looks like. So to jump right in, I'm going to start with our summary of what is new or what has changed as a part of this February release. And so I'm going to start on the left and kind of work my way across the right of the slide. So first on the list, we have workplace management. This is one of our big investment themes in terms of where we're headed for workplace service delivery. And you can see that underneath this umbrella, we have those two new applications that I already mentioned, so maintenance and lease. And I'm not going to steal the thunder of Claire and Joe. I'm going to let them kind of give the deep dive of those two applications once we get there. You'll also see Space Recommender. So I mentioned this on our agenda slide. This is one of the things that I'm going to do the demo for, but just at a high level, what Space Recommender is it's a form that users can fill out on our Employee Center portal. They can plug in different requirements about the space that they may be looking for, and Space Recommender actually generates recommendations for them. So again, I'll be providing a demo of this and explaining how it works as we get deeper into the webinar, but that's what Space Recommender is. The other thing that we've added, and again, I'm not going to steal Elizabeth's thunder, but is support for neighborhoods. So this really kind of supports that strategic move that a lot of customers are making away from maybe individual desk assignments to open workspaces that are neighborhood based. So Elizabeth will be walking through the details of that one. And then last but not least, under workplace management, we have what we've labeled as scenario plan approvals. And there's a bit of a backstory around scenario plan approvals. So in Q4 of last year, we actually delivered our scenario planning capability. And in case you're not already familiar with that, I'll kind of give an explanation of what that is and explain why approvals are relevant. So what scenario planning allows you to do is configure different kind of what if scenarios for how you're using and allocating your space. And this is a big need for a lot of our customers right now because they're trying to understand and make sure that they're using their space efficiently. So this is a drag and drop, very visual format. And what you're able to do is kind of, configure a couple of options that are not pre-production. But what's likely to happen is there's one that you perhaps like the best that you want to consider actually deploying and moving to production. So what scenario plan approvals allow you to do is actually build in out-of-the-box approvals for different stakeholders who may need to review that scenario before you actually move it to production. So that's what's been added for scenario planning as a part of this February release. Next, if we move to workplace experience, there's one big thing that we've added as a part of February, and that is around privacy. So we've added the ability for you to control the visibility of how an employee's assigned location or reserved space can be seen by others. And the nice thing about this is the way that we've delivered it is very flexible. You have multiple levels that you can control this at. So you could actually enable location privacy as a system property. You could enable this at a building level, and you can even do it at workplace profile level as per employees. The next category is health and safety. And there's also some backstory here that I want to give before I talk about specifically this February release. So many of you probably remember that back in 2020, we delivered a suite of applications called Safe Workplace. So this includes applications like contact tracing and vaccination status. And really what this did is it helped our customers in their moment of need around keeping their employees safe as it related to the pandemic. As we all know, keeping employees safe at work is about a lot more than the pandemic. There are a lot of other things that can happen. There can be accidents that occur in the workplace. Someone can slip or trip or fall, or even something more severe can happen. And so health and safety and health and safety incident management specifically was first released in Q4 of last year. And really the purpose behind this is twofold. One is to, really allow employees to access safety and know kind of the different protocol. So this could be, giving employees access to safety policies or maybe safety data sheets via knowledge management. It also gives them the ability to report incidents. So let's say I'm an employee and I get hurt at work and I need to report that, or maybe I have an observation or I see a near miss, being able to submit that via our employee center portal. So that's one aspect really from that employee perspective. The other aspect is around the investigation around health and safety. So a lot of times these incidents can be somewhat complex, and there is a need to conduct an investigation and really assess the situation and identify the root cause so corrective and preventive actions can be assigned to make sure that that accident does not happen again. So that's what health and safety is. Again, just wanted to give that overview in case you haven't heard of it yet since it's still fairly new. As a part of this release, as you can see, we've done some various enhancements. One of the biggest enhancements that just was released in February is actually an OSHA plugin. So what this means is you actually have a button and you can export your different logs or reports, as you can see here on the slide, into those required OSHA formats. So it's really kind of extrapolating that information that's been input regarding the incident or the illness or injury and putting it into those required forms. You can also see a couple of other enhancements that we've made. I'm not going to walk through the list, but some enhancements around sensitivity and a new compliance officer role for that export to the OSHA forms that we see there. Last but not least, if we move over to the final category on the right is map visualization. And again, I am a fan of backstories and context, so I'll start with that before I dig into the specifics of the enhancements around map visualization. So last year, Workplace Service Delivery introduced a brand new native mapping capability. And that was released in May of last year. And since then, this continues to be a very big investment area for us. We're very much making enhancements and improving that experience. And so you can see here, there are a couple of key things that we delivered as part of February. First is an integration with a third party called Indoor Atlas for what we call a blue dot experience. And the easiest way to explain this is by thinking about the context of our personal lives. Let's say you open your phone, you open your navigation app, and you plug in a destination that you want to wayfind or navigate to. What you're used to seeing is that blue dot that follows your location. That's the blue dot that we're referring to here. And the context is that Indoor Atlas, again, this third party, can enable what we call indoor positioning. So if I'm wayfinding using ServiceNow's indoor mapping capability, Indoor Atlas makes that blue dot kind of follow you throughout your wayfinding experience. A couple of other things that we've done regarding map visualization would be patterns to express availability on the map. So previous to our February release, this could be seen by employees by either red or green coloring to know if a space is available. We've now added pattern support, and this is specifically helpful maybe for users who are colorblind. They no longer have to try to differentiate those colors. They have a pattern. We've also added the ability to copy directions from floors. So oftentimes buildings have identical layouts from floor to floor. So to save you time as part of your implementation, if you want to go ahead and copy the directions that you've maybe graphed and created for one floor, you can copy those to the floors who have the same layout. Another thing that we've added, and this is what you actually see in that screenshot, is the ability to share locations with URLs. So this is specifically helpful in the context of driving employee collaboration. Maybe I'm kind of looking at a location and I'm evaluating whether I want to host my team event in that specific space. What I'm able to do is kind of share that through URL and even include a note, as you can see in that screenshot. And then last but not least, also part of our map visualization investment for this release is some enhancements to how you're able to view your CAD layers in preview mode as part of what we call Map Studio. So Map Studio is where map admins can actually go to create those really great mapping experiences for employees. And one of the ways that you get your space data or your map data in the system is via importing your CAD file. So as you can see, we have a lot to talk about as part of February. We've added a lot to this release, but again, today we're going to focus on some of those bigger items, and we're now going to bring them to life by doing a bit of deep dive into some of the bigger things like the new applications. So that actually takes us to workplace lease administration, and I'm going to invite Joe into the conversation. He is going to give our overview on this new application.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you, everybody, for your participation today. Much appreciated. So I'm excited to share with you work lease administration. For those who don't know me, I am a solutions consultant. I've been in the industry for 6 to 7 years. I've been at ServiceNow for 1 year, and it's been awesome. And I just want to give a shout out to the product team for how much time and energy they put to make our workplace service delivery portfolio even stronger with the enhancements that they release every quarter. So what we're seeing here in the industry, and you've probably been part of a conversation, is around buildings, around lease, and what we do with the hybrid type of environment. We know the utilization side, which we do really, really well with our reservation and analytics, but now we want to get to the operations of a more macro level, more of a building portfolio level. And the key capabilities that you can see here, we're able to actually look at leases, both long-term and short-term. We're able to go ahead and track associated costs with those buildings, be those service contracts. We can actually display the length and give reminders of when leases are coming due, payments that are due. Again, giving the real estate team the ability to have a consolidated view of what's going on within the portfolio. And again, notifying and having those trigger notifications to the specific individuals who need to know. That could be real estate, that could be financial, and everywhere in between. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if that's okay, Allison.
Of course.
And let's go ahead and start. Just want to get a confirmation everybody can see my screen okay, and it looks really pretty with all the graphs and charts. All right.
Looks great.
Excellent. So this is the lease administration workspace. You see the workspace here, and then the icon is to the bottom left-hand corner. So one of the things that we see within the industry is the issue or the obstacle, I would say, would be managing and navigating multiple systems to understand how many contracts you have, what type of buildings you have. And then this lack of cohesion between different systems, not only is a time waste, but it's also a frustration of where the source of truth lies. And this is what lease administration does for us. It helps us consolidate the view so that, in this case, I'm impersonating Amelia, who's a who's in a real estate professional within an organization to be able to understand with one click everything that's going on from a building operational capacity. So again, I'm not going to point out everything, but I just want to show you just things that are very, what I call important. So we can see the number of contracts. Amelia can see that of those contracts, 6 or 13 are active, excuse me. How many are expiring within, 120 days? That's 5, right? So we're going to have some turnover. There's some renewal possibilities, perhaps that we need to have some operational meetings about if that's something we want to do. More importantly, from a bottom line perspective, we can see contracts by lease type, right? Are they modified? Are they triple net leases, gross leases? All of this makes some real important sense to the real estate professionals and bottom line, because now we can look at a payment schedule. Are they quarterly, annually, monthly? These are all key indicators of how we can manage the portfolio that best helps not only the workers have a great place to work, but also from a financial standpoint, being able to understand what is the cost and how that cost can impact from month to month, quarter to quarter, or annually based on those payment types. And then we can see again, as far as our workload. So because Amelia is a manager, she can see how many contract administrators versus vendors and what that ratio is. Are they underworked, overworked? Are they, do they have capacity to take on more? All that is important for the operational sustainability of the real estate portfolio. And last but not least, she can see the workplace contracts. These, again, with the headers, you can modify, you can configure how you wish, but we have some key indicators or key headers here where we have our contract number, we have our vendor, whether, who we're leasing to, or who we're leasing from, and then perhaps service contracts that are part of that lease. When the start date and end date is, who that contract administrator is it active, and then is it expiring, right? All these things help us understand, have a good pulse on what's going on with our portfolio. So in this case, Amelia, she wants to see a couple different things as far as from a contract perspective. So as she scrolls down, she's going to hit view all. And when she views all, she's going to see the workplace contracts. And those workplace contracts, one that's that has her attention, that's actually being managed by Maria, but she wants to take a look at this because it involves multiple, not only the lease, but also services. And she wants to make sure that they're happening correctly and on time, and that she understands the scope of those services. So when she selects this contract number here, it's going to pop up a tab. And in this detail tab, we see that there's these major headers. So I can understand, or Amelia can understand this case, who the workplace contract's with, what type of lease it is, right? As far as who the administrator is. So she can actually get some insight into what's going on the day-to-day operations, when that end date is. Also the financial obligation of what's going on, right? What that yearly cost is. If a renewal is happening, this is where that information is done. But in this case, we're not worried about that. You can also see across this x-axis here, we can see contracts that are associated with the lease. So it's not just lease that we're looking at, it's everything that rolls up to lease. And this could be a separate contract or an addendum to that contract. So in this case, she's going to look at workplace contract. These are services. And what she understands is these are the service contracts and the areas or locations in which they happen. Now, she can drill down to any one of these to get a little bit more granular information, just to understand what's going on. So she can see, okay, the name, the contract, anything she wants to attach, she can, such as an agreement. But again, we're seeing that's a $25,000 cost. As she hits the back button, we're then brought back to this main screen. We can see the contract locations, so we understand exactly which locations are going to be affected by this contract, by the service contract. We can see that whether it's Denver, Seattle, etc. Again, we can find out exactly where these are by selecting the button, and then this tells us the location from our location table to be able to understand the exact location. But what's really important as we kind of go to the right is we can also now include assets. Which assets are covered by this? This is a new feature that Workplace Services has assets, and we can actually cover or we can actually track the cases and costs associated with an asset, be that part of a service contract or just by a workplace case. So in this case, I can see an asset in this case is included in one of these contracts. I can go ahead and select it. and I can see it's a glass merchandiser, right? So this is a beverage machine that the associates will use. I can also see corresponding assets that are part of this, right? So these are things that would need to be checked or possibly checked or repaired within that service contract. I can see their costs. I can see their asset tag number, what type of model category. Again, this is set up when you implement this application. And so now we've gone from lease management, right? If we're kind of looking on the outside of a building, and now we're getting a little more intimate to be able to understand beyond the doors, what's going on with that building specifically. So if I hit back, again, we're going to go through approval history. If there needs to be approvals, we can see what that history is. Contract history, again, being able to see if there's any changes, whether it's renewed, adjusted. Any documents we want to go ahead and apply or attach to this can all be done right here at the click of a button. But this is what I call, this is the gotcha. This is what I absolutely love about this application. And this is the workplace cases. What we're doing is we're bringing in all the aspects of workspace delivery, and we're actually able to tie in all the cases that are pertinent to this building. So now they're not just on the periphery, but Amelia can actually see what's going on. So she can see work in progress. She can see what type of cases they are. She can see we're making spaces available. And that's one of the things that I love about this application is we're bringing in, there's different categories. There's space management, there's move management, there's reservation and case management. All this is encapsulated into this one product, so that a real estate agent doesn't have to ask everybody that her manager, she can go to the different contract administrators, but she can actually on a whim just be able to say, hey, what's going on? What's happening with my building or the buildings within my purview? And then she can see who they're assigned to. So if I wanted to go ahead and say, let's go ahead and look at some of these, I could then drill down and see the ticket and the activity. And then Amelia, what she can do is she can actually interact with this case, right? She can be able to see the latest notes, the proof of performance here, what's going on of the latest status or status change. And then, of course, you have all these subcategories as far as any other child cases, attached knowledge articles that you've probably seen within the work case place forms. So what we're doing is we're giving a full picture so that if Maria on the fly is asked, hey, how are we doing? How many active contracts do we have? She can give a 30-second pitch of the overall experience to an executive, to her cohorts, those who would be asking for spaces as far as, hey, how are we onboarding this building? How are we offboarding this building? This gives her the ability to look at that and be able to understand where they are at any given moment in time. I know it's a lot of information. We're recording this so you can go ahead and look at it, but I only have so much time. So again, I appreciate your willingness to be part of this. And again, thank you to Product. They do a fantastic job, and I'm very excited about this workplace lease administration. So I'll turn it back over to you, Miss Allison.
Yes, great demo. Thank you so much for giving the overview. We got a couple of questions as you were demoing in the Q&A, and I answered those. But to keep us on time, I am going to pass it over to Claire to talk about maintenance management.
Thank you, Allison. And hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. My name is Claire. I am on Allison's team, for outbound product management as part of Workplace. So today we're going to cover Workplace Maintenance Management. This is a new top-level application with our latest release. So two parts of this. One, the ability to perform corrective or preventative maintenance. So with the idea of corrective maintenance, this would be allowing employees to submit a maintenance request, say they're in the office and they see something is broken, they're now able to associate that asset to that case. The second part of this being preventative maintenance. So that's where we're going to walk through the majority of this during our demo today, being able to schedule and plan maintenance. The result of this being extended life on your assets, reducing cost and impact and downtime. So instead of having something breaking, monitoring that asset to make sure that you can fix things before they are completely broken, having that impact on your organization. So within our update today, we'll cover preventative maintenance, but I do want to also call out that corrective maintenance is something that is within this release. So I'll share my screen now for our demo today. and we'll get into a live demo of preventative maintenance. And just verifying that you can see my screen.
Yep, we see it.
Perfect. So we're now joining Amelia today. She is our maintenance manager. She's able to come into Workplace Central, and at a high level, she's able to get visibility into these maintenance plans. So she's able to see all of the plans that have been created. This is giving her that visibility across her organization. So she can see these plans, any draft plans that she or her team has been creating, as well as some quick info and reports about what maintenance cases have been created off of these maintenance plans. So she sees some trends here, what cases have been created in the last 30 days. The maintenance cases by this quarter, she sees a spike here in corrective actions. And so that is going to prompt her to be more proactive with her approach. As we know, corrective actions are costly and they lead to a loss of productivity, especially when there's downtime of an asset. So we want to make sure we're being proactive and having preventive measures for this. Last, she's able to see maintenance plan by type, so whether it's based off of location plans or model, which we'll walk through as we create a case. And at the bottom here, she can see all of her maintenance plans. So across the organization, depending on what type of plan this is, where the plan is. So Amelia here knows that she wants to create a maintenance plan, and she's very easily able to walk through this process and be guided through it. So she's not going to have this steep learning curve of creating the maintenance plan. She's able to just fill out the categories that she needs to. So she knows she wants to create a location maintenance plan today. She's able to choose the start date. So we'll say it starts today, and then it's going to end next year, where she can reassess the maintenance plans that she's created. We'll just go all the way to next year. And she can choose a short description, giving more background and context for her team to see what type of plan this is. And then we're able to select the plan type. So is this a model type? So for example, if she were to be creating a plan based of all of the specific type of models and monitoring those assets that are under that model, or the location type as well. And last, because it's a location, she can choose the building for this. We'll just say building B. And as she's guided through this plan, she's then able to see the maintenance items. So based on this maintenance plan and her team, she knows that she wants to do maintenance on all of the fire extinguishers. So she can filter out, select these. She's not going to have to create a new plan for each of these assets. She's able to add them all to her plan, having consistency with her approach, but also saving her time without having to create a new plan for each asset. Here, she's able to create her schedule on this. So she has two options here. She can either create her schedule or copy her schedule. If she has an existing schedule, say she were to be creating plans for specific buildings, she has a campus of buildings and wanted to create consistency that way. Again, this is saving her time and allowing her to be more efficient. So she can choose the schedule name. She'll say quarterly, or we'll say monthly maintenance check. Check on the fire extinguishers. We can add our short description here, as well as choosing the trigger type or duration. So she knows that she wants it to be monthly, but she can have this be annually, weekly, a week in the month. She has flexibility for the scheduling of this plan. So we'll actually say monthly, and she can choose the due date of the month. So we'll say it's due on the 1st, and she can save this. Now she has the ability off of this maintenance plan to create multiple schedules and add schedules as she needs. So if she were to want to have a specific monthly check on fire extinguishers versus different checks for weekly, she can create as many schedules as she would like off of this one maintenance plan. We're going to publish it here. And as she publishes it, we are able to see a view, and I'll get this loaded for us. So Amelia is able to come back and see an overview of her maintenance plan. And as it loads for us, we'll be able to see that here. Okay, so she's able to see her monthly plan. She's able to see each of the assets to the left here and when the plan is going to occur. She can see her details of her maintenance plan. If she needed to add comments, if she had multiple team members working on this, they needed to add comments here. This is going to act as a live historical view of her maintenance plan. She is able to see all of her items that are on this plan as well. So if she needed to drill in and see the specific asset, she's able to view that here, as well as the schedules that she had created. Again, she can come back and create more schedules if need be, but she can see them here. Within her plan records, this is essentially the maintenance items times the schedule. So right now it's only been run once, but if this were to be a daily maintenance run or maintenance plan, she would see 20 plan records per day, and she'll see the next runtime as well. So giving her that historical view, taking her out of spreadsheets, but giving her visibility to know when these plans have been run. Last, she's able to see her maintenance cases. Now, this scheduled job is run nightly, and essentially what it will do is run a job so that the maintenance cases, so essentially the actions that need to be taken on behalf of this, are automatically assigned out. So I'll pull up one that has already been run, since I don't want us to wait here until midnight to have the job run. But essentially what it is going to do is pull up all of those maintenance cases. So we can see that they have been assigned out to specific individuals, the state that they're in, and these can be different tasks that need to be done on behalf of the item. So for the fire extinguisher, does Roger need to go and check the expiration date? Does he need to see if there's corrosion on it? And then she's able to see within our case here, she would be able to see what Roger has done and the actions that he has taken on behalf of that. So we'll see if this loads up for us. And I think I've gotten too click happy, so now it wants to load. But for Amelia, she's able to see that as well. I'll just refresh this for us here. But one other view that she can have is visibility into those cases. So she can see at a high level, all of those cases now are on the maintenance plan. So she's able to see when they're occurring, as well as what needs to be done and the status that they are in. So giving her full visibility into the maintenance plan. That is all I've had prepared to show us today. Thank you so much for your time. I see some questions in the chat, which I can start answering. And with that, I will pass it off to our next speaker.
Great. Thank you, Claire. And yes, as Claire just acknowledged, we are seeing the Q&A, so we'll be typing. And then as a reminder, we'll also have time to chat through questions at the end. So if you have submitted a question and you haven't seen a response back, it's either because we're going to hold it and discuss it live, or we'll be typing back to you. So our next topic is Space Recommender. And per our pattern, I'm going to start with an overview in slide format. And then in a moment, I'm going to switch to an instance and give you all a demo. So I know I talked a little bit about Space Recommender before, but again, the purpose behind Space Recommender is to help our customers make decisions regarding available space based on business criteria or requirements that they may have. And the way that I really like to explain this is via an example. So let's say that I am a leader within a line of business and I have a team expansion. Let's say that I am hiring 10 new people and I would like to kind of browse and figure out what options we may have in terms of their desk assignments. What Space Recommender does is I actually have a Space Assist request form that I can fill out on our Employee Center portal. And that's where I can plug in different requirements that I have around the space that I'm looking for. And what Space Recommender does is it actually generates up to 3 space recommendations for me based on what I have filled out in that form. And the way this is working is it's actually looking at rules behind the scenes that can be configured by workplace teams in terms of the matching activity. And there's a lot of flexibility in terms of the configuration of how you define those rules. You can use table conditions and a condition builder. You can even use an advanced script. And there are a couple of other options that I will show in just a moment. So that's the overview and the purpose of what Space Recommender is. Now I'm going to switch my screen share and I am going to give a demo. Just one moment. All right, so I'll just have someone confirm that we can see my Employee Center portal.
Yep, we can see it.
Yep. Perfect. All right. So I'm sure most of you on the webinar are familiar with Employee Center, but because our other demos haven't really been in this UI, I want to just take a moment to explain what this is in case you're newer to ServiceNow. So Employee Center, we like to say, is our front door to the enterprise for employees. So this is where you can access information and get help across the enterprise. So you can see that there's a lot going on here. There are kind of these tab navigations across the top regarding different topics like health and safety and workplace. I can search. The demo is not specific to Employee Center. There's a lot to say here, but just wanted to orient you on what we're looking at. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up that Space Assist request form that I was just talking about. And employees, of course, have a couple of different options in terms of how they navigate on Employee Center. They can search, or they can even navigate here to one of our topic pages. And because I want to show you what a topic page looks like, I'm going to click here into Workplace, and I'm going to go into Browse All Workplace. And really, topic pages are your opportunity to really display different information to employees based on the topic at hand. So you can see out of the box in this demo environment, I have a couple of workplace topics. I have furniture and supplies, site safety, maintenance, a couple of other things. And if I scroll down, I can see a couple of different things here. I can see some available requests. And I'm going to click into this Space Assist request because that's the one that's relevant for Space Recommender. So this is what this form looks like out of the box. As you can see, it gives kind of a description and it helps orient users on what the purpose of this is. And so sticking with my example earlier, let's say again that I am a line of business lead and I am expanding my team and hiring 10 new people and I need to find an area or a space for them to sit. So if we scroll down, you can see that the form knows who I am. For our demo today, I'm just logged in as system administrator. And if necessary, I can actually request this on behalf of someone by changing what's auto-populated here. I also have the option to choose how I want to allocate space. If I want to do it by department or my cost center or both. For today, I'm going to keep it as department. And let's say that I am the lead for creative services. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And now I can actually describe what my need is regarding space. So I can see I have the ability to specify the reason for my request. Like I said, my team is growing, so this is an expansion. I'm going to go ahead and select that. And then it's asking me what the assignment type is, whether these are flexible spaces or permanent. I would like these to be permanent spaces for the 10 new people that are joining the team. So I'm going to select permanent. And then I can even specify the space type. So you can see different space types are available here, like restrooms or conference rooms. Because again, I'm hiring 10 people and I'd like to assign them permanent space, I'm going to go ahead and click workspace/desk. And I do, in this scenario, need this to be an exact match. I definitely don't want to try to assign them to something that is a conference room or another type of space today. So I do need that to be an exact match. And then it's asking for the quantity or the capacity. So like I said, I'm hiring 10 new people. I can go ahead and put that in. And then if I scroll to the next area of this form, it's asking for location preferences that I have. So first I can start by saying region. We are in the Americas. Then I can specify my site. Obviously, this is demo data. A customer is likely to have more regions and sites, but I'm going to go ahead and select North America and the one campus that we have in North America. And then you can see the next option is building. Because I know that these buildings are part of the same campus, let's say they're right next to each other, I don't have a big preference. It could be in either building A or B. So I'm actually not going to select anything here because I am open to either one of these being proposed to me. But if I did have a hard requirement, I could go ahead and select a building, and I could even say that that has to be an exact match if that's my requirement. Then in the next section, it's asking me how long I need this space for. I've already specified that this is actually a permanent space need, and I don't yet know the move-in date for my 10 new team members. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this blank, but if I had those specific requirements or those dates, I'd of course be able to populate and say that they had to be an exact match. So now I'm going to submit this form. And what's happening is there's actually a flow that's running in the background. And what that's doing is it's checking those rules that have been configured. And the message that's displayed to employees immediately once they submit is just confirming that that request has been submitted. And it's confirming that the best options are being found, and that once those options are available, there is a notification that triggers via email. So I'm going to give this a moment to have that flow run. And while we're giving this a moment, I'm going to show you what the, and there it's already done. I'm going to show you what those space recommenders rules actually look like. So I'm going to switch tabs. And the nice thing about this is out of the box, we have delivered a lot of different space recommender rules to get you started. So I'm not going to walk through all of these, but you can see here some examples around active spaces, space type, assignment type, the ability to exclude blocked spaces. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to click into one of these as an example. So this is our delivered example rule around the space status. So this is a rule that's been configured as rule type of condition. So that's why I can see the table that I'm building that condition off of. And then this is probably familiar to a lot of people on the call, but this is our condition builder, where I can say the status is one of either active or future. Obviously, I don't want to give availability to spaces that have been retired or maybe they're temporary. I really want space recommendations to be generated based off of these two statuses. The other thing I want to show you is just how easy it is for you to create your own rules. So if you click this new button, I'm just going to very quickly show you what this looks like. So of course, you're able to specify a rule name, and then you're able to specify what type of rule you'd like to create. So the one that we just clicked into a moment ago was condition-based. So again, we're able to select that table and build those conditions. You're also able to use advanced scripts if required, if necessary. You're able to also build rules that are based on ignoring block spaces or the proximity. But to keep us on time, I'm going to flip back and just show you what my recommendations now look like on Employee Center as the person, again, who submitted that request. So here under the Space Plans view, I'm able to see 3 options based on the requirements that I put in. And you can actually see the percent match. This is based on those rules and the percent adherence to those rules that are in the back end, as well as the requirements that I've submitted. The other nice thing is that if you are using workplace indoor mapping and you have maps available for these spaces, users can even view the maps that are being proposed on a map visualization. So what would happen here is I would be able to review these 3 options that are being proposed for me, and I'd be able to select the option that best meets my needs, and I'd be able to submit that and work with my workplace or facilities team further on the request and my preference regarding the space. To keep us on time, I'm now going to move us to the next topic, and that next topic is going to be led by Elizabeth. And let me get my slides shared back again around neighborhoods. So Elizabeth, over to you.
Thank you very much, Alison. So for those I haven't met, I'm Elizabeth from the Outbound Product Management team, and I work alongside Claire and Alison. So thanks again for all joining today. I'm going to run through briefly neighborhoods. So the reason we came out with this new functionality mainly was because we wanted to enhance the reservation experience. We learned that organizations were kind of wanting more flexibility as they were moving off single assignments and wanted more a concept of neighborhoods where employees could come and book within the neighborhood they actually work in. Neighborhoods actually aren't limited to reservation. I can use the location directory, so the map view that I can go and click in and actually visualize where that neighborhood is on the map. But space planners, as part of the scenario planning, as Alison was mentioning early on, the feature that was released in November has also been enhanced with this new neighborhood capability. So whereas before I could filter by cost center, by department to kind of create what if scenarios of how I could readjust my office space. Today, with this new release, we can now also do that using neighborhoods. So I can kind of visualize the different neighborhoods I've created and have that visualized on the map. So today what I'm going to be doing is going into a demo instance and showing you the experience that a user will have actually when creating a reservation when neighborhoods are set up for him. So I'll just go ahead and share my screen. Can you confirm that you can see my workplace?
Yep, we see the topic page.
Perfect. So I won't go through this page as Alison just did a brief introduction as to this, as to what this page is. What I'm going to do here is go into a new general reservation. So today I'm signed in as Abel. So Abel is an employee in the organization and he works as part of the product team. So this is the page you're probably used to, the reservation portal, where Abel can come and say, I want to reserve a specific space, a specific desk, a conference, based on different criteria. So today, Abel's going to come in, sign in, they're going to say, I want to browse by neighborhood. I want to actually sit in a neighborhood that I've been assigned to. Seeing as Abel is part of the product team, he's been assigned only here to the product management neighborhood. And so from there, he can then choose which location he wants to go into. He has the option of choosing the floor, can also define the time, the recurring, or if he wants to have the all-day reservation. So what he's going to do is going to search for it. And again, we're going to have the possibility of having the 3 different views. So right now I'm going to focus on the map view, and I'll be able to see, just like we were able to do in past reservations in any other way, that if we just wanted to look by, if we just wanted to search for all spaces, if we wanted to search by area, we can still see the green dots here represent what spaces are available for me to book. So these green spaces have been assigned to the specific neighborhood. So today, if Abel wanted to book one of these spaces, he could then select it and then make a reservation. If Abel was part of, let's say, 2 different, he was part of the product team, but he could also, if in his organization there's a lot of collaboration with the marketing team, he could perhaps be assigned to 2 different neighborhoods, and in which case he'd have the possibility here of selecting multiple neighborhoods. So having said that, I'm going to briefly go into the back end. I'm going to log in here as a system administrator, just to show you briefly how simply and easy it is to configure a neighborhood based on what has already been configured by organization for reservation. So what I'm going to do is go into neighborhood. I'm not going to create a new neighborhood based on what time we have left. So I'm just going to show you how one of these neighborhoods have been set up. So here's a system administrator. I can see all the neighborhoods that have been configured for my organization. And I'm going to go into the finance neighborhood. Simply, I have the name of the neighborhood. I've marked it as active, so meaning people can actually use it. It's visible in the location directory. It will be visible on the reservation page. And it can also be used if I set up scenario planning. I'd be able to filter using this neighborhood and see that appear in scenario planning. Right here, it's restricted. So neighborhoods are either restricted or unrestricted. So when they're restricted, this means only people that have been assigned to this specific neighborhood can have access to it. So Abel cannot reserve in this space because this space is restricted. He's not part of the finance team, and I have not assigned him to this specific neighborhood. So if we had an open neighborhood, we'd want everyone in the organization to be able to make a booking in it. We'd just untick the restricted box for everyone to be able to see it. So neighborhoods can be set up in 2 different ways. Either by manually setting them up. So right now here you can see spaces. I can go in and edit, and I'd get the list of each space and say 1 by 1, I want this space to be assigned to the neighborhood. Or the easier way is to go via space assignment tasks. So what's a task? A task right here is actually bulk assignments of spaces. So to be able to assign a space, I'm not going to manually say B14 is assigned to this neighborhood. I'm going to come in here and do a bulk assignment of multiple spaces for them to be assigned to that neighborhood. So how it's configured is just describing what the type is, assigning to which neighborhood it's going to be done. We have 2 options of either to append, so adding these spaces, or we have, we're moving the spaces that were currently assigned and then changing them to a different assignment. So we're moving what was previously done to start new with this new task. And then I can come in here with all the different conditions and say, I want all the spaces that are assigned to a specific cost center, all the spaces that are assigned to a specific department, and filter out each space that I would like to have added to my neighborhood. The same way that I do this with space, I can also bulk assign employees. I can, like the spaces, I can do it manually. So I can say, I'll open it up here. I can say that one by one, an employee should be assigned to this space. So by one clicking and then moving them onto they're assigned to this space. Or I can go and use certain rules to bulk assign them. So it's going to create the same task and move those employees and say they're assigned to this specific neighborhood, which is restricted. So as they're in here, they'll be able to make a reservation in this neighborhood. So in the same way, I'm going to define the name of what I want this task to be called. I'm going to define which neighborhood they're coming into, the building, the floor. I can define here the criteria, if it's by the cost center, the class, the user ID. Any way the company or the organization has to filtering out the employees, this can be done in a similar way here to bulk assign. Once all of that is done, I just go back to my neighborhood. And then once I'm on my neighborhood, I just update that. And then all that data is taken into account. So Abel can now reserve in his specific neighborhood when making a reservation. So I think that's wrapped up. I think I went through that quite fast, but I know that there's a couple of questions in Q&A, and I don't want to be to blame if we don't get to those answers.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. Another great demo. Now what we want to do, we want to run a quick poll and get some feedback. So we've talked about a lot today, and we want to hear from our audience on what new feature or application you are most interested in. So let me, oh, there it is. We've just launched the poll. So what you should now see in your Zoom is a new panel that pops up and you can vote for your top request. So we'll give you a minute or so to submit your vote. And in the meantime, what I'm going to do is talk about some of the resources that we have available if you're interested in learning more about everything that we've discussed today. So first and foremost, I'm sure many of you are already familiar with our documentation site. As I mentioned earlier, you can now find documentation on all of the capabilities that we've talked about on Docs that has been pushed with our Utah release, which just happened yesterday. In addition to Docs, I also want to call your attention to a blog that's out on our community. So that's what we're seeing in this screenshot. This is a blog that's been published by Elizabeth that's really deep diving into some of the specifics around the capabilities released in February. And the nice thing about this blog is it has a lot of screenshots and it actually directs you to various information like the plugin that may be available, the roles that are required, or who benefits from the feature or capability. So if you're not already out on community and subscribe to our workplace service delivery forum, please go out there and subscribe. We try to make an effort every release that we push out on a quarterly basis. We have these blogs now that we publish on community, and we're now doing these live sessions. In addition to the blog, we have some other live sessions that are coming up. So as I mentioned at the start of the webinar, this webinar today is part of a series called Live on ServiceNow. And so we have one that's dedicated to indoor mapping that's coming up. So as I talked about at the beginning of the webinar, mapping is a very big investment for us. And I went through the enhancements relatively fast in terms of what changed in February. And so we actually have a dedicated session. If you're very interested in indoor mapping and you want to ask questions, I'd recommend that you sign up for that session. And I know, Raj, you were in the Q&A asking some questions specific to indoor mapping and the plugins. Highly recommend that you go attend that live session as well, as I'm sure it will have some helpful content. Additionally, we also have a webinar around leading practices for health and safety and implementing that product. So as a reminder, that was the product that's all about keeping employees safe in the workplace and the different incidents that can occur. In this webinar, we're going to go through some of the tips that we have regarding implementation. So if you're a customer or a partner who may be helping a customer implement this product, that'll be specifically helpful for you. In the meantime, let's see what's going on with our poll. So I'm going to end the poll. It looks like we've gotten some good participation, and I am going to share the results. So the results are in, and it looks like 50% of you have selected neighborhoods as the top capability that you're interested in, followed by maintenance management and space recommender. Awesome feedback. I am not surprised by these results. Neighborhoods was heavily influenced by our customers, so we were very excited to introduce that. And I know this one specifically, we had a lot of our customers involved in shaping the design of what we've delivered. And we know from talking with many of you that this is very timely, again, in terms of your shift from maybe individually allocating desks to users to those open neighborhood workspaces. So that's definitely exciting feedback. Thank you for participating in that poll. Now what we're going to do, we are going to go to Q&A in our last couple of minutes. And I know we've gotten a lot of written questions. We've been keeping up with most of those in the Q&A in written format. But I'm going to open it up and just take a look quickly to see if there are any new questions that have come up live, and also progress us to a slide and some of the frequently asked questions that we typically see in our conversations around the February release. So just give me a moment. I'm going to take a quick scan at a couple of questions that have come in to see if there's anything that we want to address live versus type out. Okay, it looks like we've gotten a specific question around roles. And this also goes, I think, well with a question, Dean, that you submitted earlier on how do you know what release you're on? So one thing that's unique about workplace service delivery is that we are actually a store-based application. So what that means is there's actually a ServiceNow store, and that's where you can go to install our updates. And we're actually releasing more frequently than the big family releases. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with like Utah and Tokyo. We actually release more frequently than that. And so for you to get the latest update, you can kind of go out to store and install the updates to your plugins on a more frequent basis. So there was a question earlier on how you know what version you're on. I answered that in written format, but just want to highlight that because I think that's a frequently asked question. There's also a question on what roles exist for workplace service delivery that just came in live. And a really good resource to understand the specific roles that are required to do different functions across the suite would be our documentation site. And the way we have this laid out, we kind of have a landing page out on Docs that explains the high level of what workplace service delivery is. And then each application has a site page that really specifies all of the different technical information. So that would be the roles and the tables that are required for each of those applications. So that's where you can find that information. It looks like we also just got a question from a partner on if there are any demo hub narratives for these demos. So if you're a partner and you're wanting to show off February to customers, the answer is yes. So we just had a demo hub release. That's actually what we were using in our instances that helps you talk through these updates for your customers. So Zach, we can follow up with you and make sure that you have access to those as well. In the remaining minute, I am going to see Elizabeth, if you want to cover this question around how neighborhoods are different than areas. I know this is a really common question, so I'm going to pass it back over to you to close us out with that question.
Yes, so areas are usually based on, or are mainly based on one floor. Neighborhoods, the difference that comes in is that a neighborhood can be defined and it can be spread out on multiple floors or through multiple buildings. So I can have a finance department that's not just on floor 2. My finance department can have seats allocated on 3 different floors in my building, but could also be in building 1 and in building 2. So it can be spread out on multiple layers.
Awesome. Thank you. I know that one comes in frequently, so I thought it was worthwhile to talk about it live. And it looks like we're right at the top of the hour. So in closing, I just want to say thank you to all of our attendees for joining us today. Again, the recording will be published out to community as well as that survey. Please keep an eye out for that and provide us feedback. And we hope to see you back here for our next session on indoor mapping. Thank you all.